History remembers the victors, but what about those lost in the shadows? Isabella of Castile celebrated as the queen who united Spain, yet her reign holds a darkness rarely explored. The Spanish Inquisition, a force of terror and control, born from the flames of fear, saw millions tortured, betrayed, and executed in the name of faith. But was Isabella truly a protector of the Catholic Church? Or was she the architect of an empire built on blood and suffering? This is a story of power, fear, and cruelty, where justice and religion blur into something far more sinister. The truth behind Isabella's reign is one that history doesn't want you to remember: a reign of fear and an empire forged in darkness. Don't just watch, dive into the dark, rotten era. Like, share, and comment below. Subscribe to uncover the forgotten truths of history. Isabella and Ferdinand became known as the Catholic monarchs, with the mission to consolidate Spain under a single, powerful Catholic identity. While their reign brought political unification, it also began a long campaign to impose religious orthodoxy. The idea of a religiously unified Spain took shape under their rule. Isabella's deep Catholic faith led her to believe that it was her divine duty to unite Spain not just politically, but also religiously. But this vision of a unified Spain would come at a great cost. Was Isabella the protector of the faith, or did her mission fuel an era of religious persecution that stained Spain's history forever? In 1478, Isabella and Ferdinand took their religious vision a step further by requesting a papal decree to establish the Spanish Inquisition. The goal was to protect the purity of the Catholic faith in Spain by rooting out heresy, particularly among the conversos, Jews who had converted to Christianity under pressure. The Inquisition began as a way to weed out those who secretly continued to practice Judaism or Islam. On the surface, the Inquisition seemed like a reasonable step to preserve Catholicism, but it quickly grew into something much darker. What began as a method to safeguard Catholicism evolved into a brutal tool of control, targeting not just Jews, but Muslims, Protestants, and anyone suspected of straying from Catholic orthodoxy. The Inquisition's power and influence would spread across Spain and its colonies, becoming a terrifying force that would last for centuries. The Spanish Inquisition's most feared weapon was its use of torture. Once accused of heresy, suspects faced cruel and horrific methods to extract confessions. Torture was justified as a means of saving the soul, with the idea that a confession, even under duress, was an act of repentance. Devices like the strappado, which dislocated the victim's shoulders, and the rack, which stretched the body beyond its limits, were used to force confessions. One of the most infamous methods was waterboarding. Victims were nearly drowned and revived, repeatedly, until they confessed. These confessions were often based on nothing more than fear and suspicion. What makes this even more tragic is that many who were tortured were innocent, and their confessions were often fabricated under extreme duress. The Inquisition's reign of terror was built on a foundation of fear and cruelty, where the truth didn't matter. One of the most tragic chapters in Isabella's reign was the forced expulsion of Jews from Spain. In 1492, the Alhambra decree gave Jews a devastating choice: convert to Christianity or leave Spain. This decision was rooted in Isabella's desire to create a pure Catholic Spain, but it tore apart the lives of thousands of Jewish families. For centuries, Jews had contributed to Spain's economy, culture, and intellectual life. Now, they were being cast out. Those who chose to convert were often still viewed with suspicion, and many faced persecution under the Inquisition. Even those who fled Spain found few places willing to accept them, and the loss of such a vibrant community had devastating economic and cultural consequences for Spain. The expulsion of the Jews under Isabella's rule is remembered as one of the most brutal acts of religious intolerance in history. While the Jews faced expulsion in 1492, the Muslims of Spain, known as Moriscos, also suffered greatly. After the fall of Granada in 1492, Muslims were forced to convert to Christianity, but many continued to secretly practice Islam. Isabella and Ferdinand, initially allowing them to remain as new Christians, soon grew suspicious of the Moriscos' true devotion to the Catholic faith. The Inquisition became a tool for rooting out supposed heretics among them. Moriscos who were accused of secretly practicing Islam faced intense scrutiny, torture, and execution. Entire communities were uprooted, and families were torn apart. The Inquisition's reach became increasingly intrusive, and no one was safe from its judgment. Eventually, the Moriscos were forced to leave Spain, but by that time, the Inquisition had already destroyed their sense of security. It created a society where religious diversity was no longer tolerated, and faith became a weapon for control. The Inquisition was not just a religious institution. It was a powerful tool of control. Fear of being accused of heresy permeated every aspect of Spanish society. Neighbors were encouraged to report one another, creating an atmosphere of suspicion and distrust. The Inquisition's reach extended beyond the Iberian Peninsula, with its influence spreading to the Spanish colonies in the Americas. In the colonies, the Inquisition targeted indigenous populations, forcing them to convert to Christianity or face severe consequences. This climate of fear led to betrayals, false accusations, and a sense of constant danger. Lives were ruined with a mere whisper, and the power of the Inquisition was absolute. It was not just a religious persecution, it was a state-sanctioned reign of terror that left deep scars in Spanish society. People were forced to live in fear of being denounced, not just by strangers, but often by family and friends. The Catholic Church was integral to the functioning of the Spanish Inquisition. The Inquisition was not just a religious tribunal, it was a state-sponsored apparatus with the blessing of the Church. In exchange for its power, the Church gave the Inquisition legitimacy. This partnership between the monarchy and the Church helped to solidify the Inquisition's authority, allowing it to operate without oversight. The Church provided the spiritual justification for the Inquisition's brutal actions, portraying the persecution of heretics as a holy duty. In doing so, the Church became complicit in the suffering of thousands. While the Spanish monarchy may have driven the Inquisition's policies, it was the Church's unwavering support that allowed it to continue for centuries. The alliance between Church and state created a fearsome force that few could challenge, and it ensured that the Inquisition would remain a dominant institution for centuries to come. The auto de fe was one of the most chilling elements of the Spanish Inquisition. These public ceremonies were designed to serve as a warning to the population. Heretics, suspected witches, and blasphemers were paraded through the streets, often in chains, before being burned alive at the stake. The spectacle of the auto de fe was intended to instill fear and remind the public of the consequences of religious dissent. It wasn't just about punishment, it was about control, about making an example of those who strayed from Catholic orthodoxy. The auto de fe became a tool of social cohesion, reinforcing the power of the Inquisition and the authority of the Catholic monarchs. Public executions became more than just a means of punishment. They became a way to intimidate and suppress any thought of rebellion. The auto de fe left a permanent mark on Spanish society, creating a culture of fear that would persist for centuries. Isabella's justification for the Inquisition was rooted in her devout Catholic faith. She believed that her actions were divinely sanctioned, that she was protecting the purity of the Christian faith and securing the salvation of her kingdom. To Isabella, the Inquisition was a necessary evil, an unfortunate but essential step in creating a unified Spain. However, her legacy is deeply complicated. While Isabella's reign is remembered for uniting Spain and supporting the Age of Exploration, her role in the Inquisition casts a dark shadow over her rule. The Inquisition led to the deaths of thousands, and its long-term effects on Spain's intellectual and cultural life were devastating. Isabella's legacy as a strong monarch is tainted by her use of religious persecution to maintain control. Her reign, which is celebrated for political triumphs, is equally remembered for the suffering caused by her religious zealotry. The Spanish Inquisition officially ended in 1834, but its legacy continues to haunt Spain. The cultural and intellectual toll of the Inquisition was profound. By rooting out heresy, the Inquisition stifled free thought and intellectual progress. Spain's once vibrant Jewish and Muslim communities were decimated, leaving a void that could not be filled for generations. The Inquisition's long reach extended to the Spanish colonies in the Americas, where its influence continued to shape religious and cultural practices. Even today, the scars left by the Inquisition are visible in Spanish society. The fear and suspicion it instilled lasted for centuries, and its impact can still be felt in Spain's cultural memory. The Inquisition stands as a cautionary tale about the dangers of religious extremism and the abuse of power. Its legacy is a reminder that the pursuit of religious purity can come at a devastating cost. We've uncovered the dark side of one of history's most powerful queens, but the story doesn't end here. The Spanish Inquisition is just one example of how power can be abused in the name of faith. What do you think? Was Isabella justified in her actions? Or did her quest for unity cost too many lives? Like, share, and comment below with your thoughts. Don't forget to subscribe to The Dark Rotten Era, where we bring you the stories hidden in the shadows. Join us as we continue to explore the dark chapters of history, and together we'll unearth the truths the world often tries to forget.